Thank you very much for the opportunity to the chairs, vice chairs, and ranking members. I actually am here to just talk about a bill that I submitted, an internship program for autistic adults. It's 5360. I submitted testimony from a constituent in my district who brought this issue to my attention of the lack of opportunities for autistic adults to have internship programs in different areas so they can learn other things. But I also, with your indulgence, wanted to have the chief of my police, Gary MacNamara, and Captain Joseph Zabin speak about a bill that I also submitted, which is 5240 on hookah lounges, and I'm going to turn it over to Chief MacNamara.
Thank you.
Yes, Representative. Two things. When you testify, make sure you mention who you are. Put your name into the record. And for members of the public, it is a 3-minute.
I certainly understand that. Thank you very much. Gary MacNamara, Chief of the Fairfield Police Department, and I will be brief, and I will submit my testimony in writing. I'm here to talk about hookah lounges, but I want to clarify something. This is not a commentary on smoking, not a commentary on the health risks, and certainly not an attempt to limit hookah lounges. What it is an attempt to regulate their operation and bring it in line with similar establishments that operate in the same fashion. Hookah lounge businesses are in operation in Fairfield and a few other Connecticut communities, and they basically allow for a social smoking of a combination of tobacco and fruit or vegetable through a water pipe known as a hookah. They are not regulated by the state. They do not serve alcohol or food so as not to come under the state's no smoking law. Connecticut no smoking law bans smoking in restaurants, cafes, and taverns. If they were to serve alcohol, they would automatically fall under that state law. Hookah lounges can best be described as a social gathering place where patrons enjoy the hookah experience and meet people of common interest, and they socialize. It's the same atmosphere as a club or a bar without the ability to purchase alcohol and therefore without state regulations. Clubs and bars, however, where alcohol is served come under state regulations that allow for, among other things, inspection of the premises. It limits the hours of operation. It deals with minors who loiter, minors who consume alcohol, and limits the amount of alcohol that can be consumed, as well as a myriad of other public health concerns. These and other state regulations are in place because the state acknowledges the collateral issues that can occur if the serving and consumption of alcohol in businesses where alcohol is present is not regulated. Alcohol consumption by minors would increase, DUI activity would increase, driving under the influence would increase, and businesses would likely stay open longer, resulting in more noise, traffic, and garbage in the areas around these establishments. There is not, however, any state regulation regarding hookah lounges, yet they are just like bars and clubs without the ability to serve alcohol. This inability to serve alcohol, though, does not mean that there is no alcohol present. Quite the contrary. At least in Fairfield's experience, patrons are allowed to bring their own alcohol with them, free from regulations or concerns of the inspection of premises, and free from any oversight of state regulations. Bottom line with this, and certainly I'm open to questions, is that this is a bar. However, there is no state regulations because they don't serve alcohol. It has that same bar atmosphere, and yet we are limited with what we can do to enforce that.
I see. I thank you for bringing that testimony before us. I know last year, or maybe it was the year before, maybe it was last year, we heard quite a bit of testimony and, from the smoking aspect, if you will. But the fact that you're saying that this business runs also and delivers alcohol?
It allows people to bring alcohol in. So what it becomes is a nightclub that is open till 5 a.m. and has no oversight, no regulation. It gets around those liquor establishment rules that we follow and the state regulates.
Right. Representative Johnson has a question for you.
When you speak of no regulation, you're referring to public health regulation?
Public health regulations, yeah, and regulations of enforcement. So, in other words, there are some public health issues that come to light when you're dealing with a bar. In other words, taps and how alcohol is delivered. Public health regulations or other regulations, there's basically no regulation that I'm aware of.
In terms of local regulation, you have zoning ordinances in your district?
There are local regulations regarding zoning. However, once the business is established in town, there are no oversight regulations that we can utilize similar to those that we would utilize in a bar atmosphere.
Did you look at the zoning regulations to see how this particular lounge was placed and whether it was in an appropriate zone?
It is an appropriate zone. It is morphed into more than just a place people can smoke. It becomes a unregulated liquor establishment.
Right. Oh, thank you. Thank you for being here, and thanks for your testimony.
Are there other questions? Representative Srinivasan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your testimony. So that I am clear on this, the concerns here are the operation of these lounges in terms of there's no time factor and they could be open all night long, as you said, till 5 in the morning and things like that. So that is one of your concerns.
Exactly. Yeah, these are allowed to operate unregulated, so their time of operation can go on till 5 o'clock in the morning and has the same collateral issues that any alcohol establishment would have if it wasn't regulated and closed at the time that's regulated by the state to close. It's basically a nightclub that opens all night long. It becomes an after-hours club where the state-regulated bars close. People are now flocking to these hookah lounges because they don't come under those regulations, and they bring their own alcohol in, and we have no way to enforce minors drinking, the interaction of that, because there's no regulations that allow us to do that.
Thank you. And you brought up the second concern, the question that I had was about the alcohol coming in. That is unregulated, because this is people, the customers bringing in their own alcohol, and who drinks is unchecked, because age and there's no carding, nothing like that going on at these lounges.
Yeah, there's no carding going on. In addition to that, if we suspected a legitimate business from serving minors, we have the authority under state regulations to go into those bars and conduct random inspections. We don't have the authority under the state regulation to do this. This is a smoking club that is allowed to bring the alcohol in, therefore becoming a bar that has alcohol in it, and we have no authority to regulate that.
So the only time that you could do anything for them is if you catch them behaving disorderly or it's a DUI.
Yeah, Captain Joshua Zabin, Fairfield Police. I'm patrol commander, so all the police response comes from my division. In response to that, we do respond there for numerous calls that affect the neighborhood. And you are correct. The only way we could gain entry to the premises if there's an urgent, matter of emergency going on inside, or if we're invited in. We do not have the right to inspect like a permittee of a liquor establishment, where we can conduct inspection randomly of liquor establishments. The impact on the neighborhood, though, is multi-level. As the chief testified to, it runs from 9 in the evening till 5 in the morning, and it generates neighbor complaints from idling cars outside, radios playing, foot traffic, accidents, actual fights occurring either in the street, and a tremendous amount of litter through the early morning hours, everything from liquor bottles that people are consuming before they go into the club, down to trash, condoms, men and women urinating in public before they can get in. So the entire neighborhood surrounding this club is impacted till 5 in the morning, especially from Thursday nights till Saturday nights. And I have dedicated many, many weekends where the majority of our resources are in that area, and of course we have the balance of the town to protect also. It's a resource drain, and it also is unregulated to the effect, as the chief had testified, it ranges from the ages of 16 to 60 to go in there.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Srinivasan. I'm sorry, could you repeat your name for the record? We didn't get.
Certainly. Captain Joshua Zabin.
Joshua Zamin?
Z-A-B-I-N.
Thank you so much. Senator Kane?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The bill in front of us says to authorize greater regulation of hookah lounges. What does that mean? What are you looking for?
I think what we're looking for is for, first of all, people to recognize that this is really a liquor establishment. So some of the regulations that fall under a liquor establishment should also be afforded to these establishments also. The liquor, in order to get a permit to distribute liquor, there's obviously an application, you're vetted, and there's regulations that you have to follow. And in turn, we're allowed steps to enforce those regulations. This skirts that by BYOB. And they bring their own, and it becomes a club. It becomes a nightclub. And so what we're looking for is more regulations along those side. And it is a public health concern. We have had what we're talking about. We have had minors intoxicated ambulance calls. We have had sexual assaults of minors because you have older individuals with younger individuals who are unregulated consumption of alcohol, whereas some permittees can have both, but there's certain regulations they have to accomplish to separate the two. We have no assurances and no regulations to support that.
So you want to have them treated the same way as someone with a liquor permit?
I think that at some level, whether it's the same or not, again, I don't know all the particular regulations from a liquor distribution. However, I do think that if you are allowed to BYOB and bring your own alcohol into it, there should be some regulations.
So are there laws for establishments that are BYOB?
There are not any that we can find, no. There are
For no one?
There are no established laws that say when you can bring your own alcohol in. You bring your own alcohol in. There may be some with regards to social clubs that are established, and again, I don't know for sure, but this is not a social club that this is just a business. It's a smoking club, and it's morphed itself into an unregulated bar, and that really is our concern. And it's something that people don't really think about unless they're experiencing it, is that you have all the effects of a bar, but yet none of the enforcement and none of the regulations that go with that. And it hurts our ability to do anything about it. And that's really what we're looking for, is somebody to understand that and look towards regulation to start bringing it more in line with a combination of a large amount of people.
No, I understand that. I'm just trying to figure out what regulations you're looking for, because are there, for example, are there hookah lounges that are not BYOB?
I don't know. I don't
But the
know.
one in Fairfield
Yeah,
is?
we had two in Fairfield, and the one of the ones in Fairfield, we had a sexual assault investigation, and as a result of that investigation, we were able to take action, and that establishment no longer exists. And now we have two others. The one significant that we have is the one that is creating the most problem for it. And, look, I look at regulations. You want to have hours of operation. Those hours of operation should be consistent with establishments that serve alcohol. They shouldn't be allowed to stay open until 5 o'clock in the morning. They shouldn't become that after-hour party place that they're becoming. And the state regulation should say, if you operate a hookah lounge and you are bringing alcohol into it, then you have to follow all the guidance and guidelines that a permittee would establish.
Who would you suggest would come up with these regulations? Department of Consumer Protection?
I would say that those people most experienced with those regulations dealing with permittees would probably be the best resource. We certainly, with our experiences, could provide them with some of the problems, and then they could match our problems to what they feel would be the best avenue to take. I'm not saying regulation is going to solve all of our problems. It's just we have very little tools to handle the problems that we do encounter.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Johnson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thanks again for being here. I just have a couple of more follow-up questions. You say that you don't have probable cause to go there when there are loud noises or something going on that is causing a neighborhood disturbance. Is that what you're saying? Or could you clarify that, please?
Yeah, I was commenting on gaining entry. Unless there's an exigent circumstance, or you would need probable cause under exigency to enter a place of such, unless you had someone granted you the exception to go in. Okay, so if we're greeted at the door and he said everything's fine, the music is turned down, and we see no exigency to to enter, it's, there's no exception to the warrant requirement in that point.
No, I understand.
Yeah,
I'm
so
just,
that's what I'm trying to
I was
share.
just trying to clarify your statement, because it seemed like you were saying in no circumstances would you have probable cause to go in there. That was how I was hearing you. But and certainly if you have a loud noise or some activity, some exigent circumstance that the neighborhood is aware of, you'd have probable cause in that circumstance.
We have probable cause to take action on the noise. We don't have probable cause. We don't have the authority to enter. It's a private property, and it's not regulated. Unlike a bar where we can go in on state regulations. We can enter a bar at any moment and inspect it. We can shut the music down. We have all the authority to do it, turn on all the lights, and ask for identification to ensure that everybody's of age. We don't have that authority because this is private property and it's not regulated. So no state regulations give us that authority because they're not a permittee. They're a private entity. They're not responsible for the alcohol. They're just allowed to bring it in.
Well, if you have a party, say a parent hosts a party for some teenagers, and there's noise, you have probable cause to go in there. Do you not?
No, we don't. No, we'd have to go right to the threshold. We'd knock on the door and we'd say, can we talk to a parent? There's loud noise. Then from that, if we determine that there's underage individuals in the house, we may be able to take action. But keep in mind that we deal with that all the time. That's parents, poor parenting. That's parents allowing their kids to drink if they're underage. This is an establishment that happens every single day and every single night, and that's what we're looking for some assistance.
I'm just trying to make a comparison between the private. They're private too. The parents
Sure.
are. It's a private home, if you will, and this is a private establishment. So I would think that probable cause triggers would be similar.
They would, but the problem, you get a noise complaint at a house, you don't have the authority to just go into the residence. You don't have the authority to go into the establishment. We sit there and we basically say we have a complaint of noise, you have to turn the noise down. If we develop probable cause to go in after that fact, we can. In the other incident that we had a girl who reported, a 14-year-old girl reported she was sexually assaulted within the establishment. Obviously, that triggers a different level of probable cause for us to enter regardless.
And with respect to, we have a state statute now that addresses blight and nuisances in neighborhoods. Have you adopted that particular code in your district?
Well, I think we would follow it as a blight issue I'm not really familiar with where that blight would apply to it. I know that I don't know whether the constant complaints of noise would fall under the blight.
One of the provisions is that if you have more than 3 arrests there in a certain period of time, that the town can seize the property.
Yeah, and I don't again know what the arrest would be for. However, I think it would be very difficult to start looking at this as a blight issue as opposed to taking steps to regulate the BYOB aspect of this.
And then just one more question. In terms of the BYOB, you always hear of that when you have maybe a new restaurant established. So you have similar rules perhaps with restaurants in terms of how they're kept for food and those kinds of things. Do you have food in this establishment? Is it prohibited? Is it brought in? Is it catered? Do they bring pizzas in? How is the food addressed there? Because I would suspect there's food brought in there in some way, shape, or form.
The minute that they attempt to distribute food or alcohol, it comes under a different venue and a regulation. So from the town regulations with regards to food. They don't serve food there. They basically open it up. You smoke hookah from the hookah pipes, and then you bring in the alcohol. And that really limits their exposure to any other regulations.
So nobody can bring a personal pizza?
Yeah, I don't know if they can or not. I'm sure they can. I don't know whether they put that at the door. They probably could bring that in, and they probably do bring food in. But it's all brought in by yourself. And that's why I said in the beginning, this is not a commentary on hookah lounges and utilizing them for enjoyment of hookah. It's that they're using this as a platform to become an unlicensed and unregulated liquor establishment.
I think that maybe other communities, if they have these establishments being proposed, should be forewarned and create zoning rules that address them, because the horse is out of the barn in your circumstance, because they'd be grandfathered in at this point in time. So you wouldn't be able to regulate them with respect to zoning. But there are public health issues here. So thanks so much for your testimony.
Representative Miller